I'm Lynn.
I'm Amanda. And this is the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast.
We're cutting through the fluff and cracking open what it really takes to build a business and life that you actually want.
No gurus, no gatekeeping, just real talk, big action, and the badass energy you need to scale and slay.
Some episodes, it's just us.
And sometimes we bring on powerful guests with stories that'll hit home.
Either way, this is not about playing small.
It's about going all in.
Let's get after it. Hey there, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda. Welcome to the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast. Today we're talking about the power of subtraction. Why the most strategic entrepreneurs aren't asking, what should I add? Rather, they're asking, what should I remove so the right things can grow faster? Because entrepreneurs are taught that growth means adding more. It means more content, more offers, more social media platforms, all the things. But we feel that sometimes the real lever isn't addition, it is absolutely subtraction. So let's talk about the truth of why your scaling is so scattered.
Absolutely. And I feel like I've had this conversation a cajillion times over the past month, is that complexity kills momentum. It dilutes our attention and the buyer's attention or the prospect's attention. Like you said, companies don't, or business owners don't stall because they lack ideas most of the time. It's because too many. And then they see this and that and this and that all over social media or all over, the industry. And they're like, oh, well, I got to do that because they say that they have success here. They have success here. And no, it's absolutely not true. The complexity only drains us. It drains our energy. It dilutes the efforts and resources that we put into thing. It takes more time to see results. Complexity can happen, but it needs to be built upon one another. And it shouldn't be complex to you nor your end person, potential prospect. But, sometimes SOPs, if nobody knows what they're looking at, it could feel complex, but that's later. Having all these, one good example before I pass on to you is as a business owner, I can't tell you how many times we've made business owners audit the different apps that they have and the different tools and whatever, and even AI platforms, and they are paying for so many, and then they're barely using even 15% of this one, maybe 10% of that one, and they're just complicating things and not getting the biggest bang for their buck. It is absolutely, you don't want to feel overwhelmed. You don't want to dilute the effort. So complexity.
Yeah, I'm reminded a lot of the Eisenhower matrix because I often feel like this challenge is that your attention is divided on too many priorities, too many offers, too many responsibilities, and nothing's getting true focus, so nothing's actually growing. And it reminds me of the Eisenhower matrix because suddenly everything becomes urgent, everything becomes important, everything is, you're trying to leverage everything, but less isn't necessarily a limitation, less is the leverage. And you have schooled me on this many times because I absolutely, in my ADHD world, get the shiny ball syndrome. I wanted to do all my ideas, and all my ideas are great ideas. And that might be true for your business too. However, if you're actually looking for growth, if you're actually looking to get to the next level, you're going to have to make choices. You can't have everything be the shiny new thing you're talking about because it's too diluted unless you have billions of dollars in marketing revenue or marketing dollars to spend. Advertising or marketing everything is just going to get you nowhere. I mean, more does not equal growth. And I almost wonder if this is just a product of this myth that entrepreneurship it's glorifying doing everything. I can do everything. I can do anything. I'm going to get on every social media platform. I'm going to take over this. I'm going to do more content. I'm going to do 7 posts a day. And, that's where we get into this, when we talk about this all the time, this busyness, feeling productive, but it's just hiding a lack of strategy. It's hiding behind that hamster wheel, but nothing's actually getting done. Nothing that's needle moving is moving.
You say that again. Nothing that is needle moving is moving. And that is so So true. And when you were talking, I was thinking of one of our mentors' one of his favorite sayings is doing 6 things 1,000 times versus 1,000 things 6 times. And listen, we are here to tell you, yes, you do get the shiny ball syndrome. You got much better at it. And you said something else that was a nugget in there. It doesn't make those ideas bad. In fact, some of them are brilliant. It's just they're maybe not right for right now. And even when we have a team of people, which Amanda and I do, even when we have resources to be able to get things done and we work at a higher speed, still it creates congestion. It creates a dilution that absolutely is hurting us if we try to activate everything, and it hurts you. You know, at the end of the day, less offers often mean more revenue. And the reason why is because each offer takes its own marketing, its own delivery, its own support, its own positioning, its own like ecosystem to make it work. And then you rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And if you have too many offers, people don't know where to go. So if I look at it from the business side, you're not putting enough effort, or the effort that you are putting in could feel like a lot, but it's not the right effort to make it go as far or as big as what it can go. From a potential prospect or client side, they don't know where to look. And then they start to think, well, if they have all of these offers, like, are they a one size fits all type of person? I mean, who the hell really does like to wear a fucking one size fits all dress? Not this child. Me. No, thanks. I want it to fit me just perfectly. And at the end of the day, listen, there's Walmart out there for a reason. But the majority of our small business owners and entrepreneurs, you're not Walmart. Think about that. You may want the income that Walmart has, but they didn't get there overnight. And they had a lot of resources to throw behind it to make that shit work. And so at the end of the day, when you hyper focus in on the smaller number of offers with really clear pathways and action items and the capacity to do it, you often will have a better conversion. Clarity converts way better than variety. Hands down, all day, every day.
Absolutely. I mean, attention is a finite resource. I mean, we're constantly inundated with all the things, and decision fatigue is a real thing. I say it all the time. It's why nobody can decide what's for dinner. Decision fatigue is a result of having too many moving parts. And if you have 500 different offers, even your ideal client or ideal customer is going to look at the menu and be like, I have no idea. Have you ever gone to a Cheesecake Factory? That menu is like 700 pages long. And I always get the same things because I'm like, I know these 2 items are delicious. I can't read this many things. I absolutely get decision fatigue just looking at their menu. Conversely, when Chick-fil-A first started, I think they had like 10 or 12 items total on their entire menu. Yeah, just a couple of items, and it improved the speed of lines. It had less people ordered more of the same thing, and it streamlined operations and skyrocketed sales because people had less decisions to make, and so they just made the decision. They also had to have less stock. They only had so many items on the menu, so they didn't have to have all these random ingredients. Ultimately, it was a great business model for them because too much is too much. I was actually recently looking at a new client's offer chart, like they had an offer sheet, and they had 12 different membership structures for people to choose from. 12. And they were almost all identical except for like 1 or 2 tiny little bits. I'm like, why do you have 12 options? I was like, I need you to get rid of 6 of them. Like, we only need 3. Maybe 4 if they were like significantly different, but I slashed and burned.
Math isn't mathin', by the way.
The math ain't mathin'. The math ain't mathin'. Wait, 6. Anyway, it was 12. Math is hard. You know what? It's been a long day. The math wasn't, you're right. I just did that math again, and that was not the correct math. The point is, I only wanted 3 on the table. I wanted to get 9.
Done.
Okay, there we go. Not 6, 9. Math is hard. I didn't have my calculator out. Yeah, you know what? Math is hard. Anyway.
Maybe too many things are on your plate right now, Amanda. Just kidding.
No, I'm just hungry. Just hungry. Anyway, it was 12 offers. She had 12 offers, and I asked her to get rid of 9 because it was ridiculous how many membership offers. And I guarantee you, because I just had this conversation like six days ago, maybe. I guarantee you the next time she does a sales cycle, like this time next month, she'll have triple the memberships, because people aren't going to be wondering, like, which one's right? Am I going to choose the wrong one? What about this? What about this? People will start overanalyzing and overthinking everything. Even your team doesn't know the difference between those 12 memberships. So they can't sell it because they don't know how to explain it. So it's wrong on many fronts. So when you have all these multiple focuses, that's where the confusion starts. And even if you yourself feel like you know all the things, does your team know everything? Does your sales team know everything? Does the customer really truly understand that offer? And have you put enough marketing into it that everybody understands the difference between these? Likely not. Likely not.
Yeah. Speaking of teams, when you're growing, it forces you to let go of control of certain things and roles and responsibilities that you once held, and a lot of tasks. Many founders and entrepreneurs, they hold on to these tasks. And we talk about this. We've had podcasts after podcasts about this, that all that busy work, quote unquote, or that work that was once invaluable to you or to your company is no longer of value. And it congests you, because then we only have so much energy. We only have so much capacity. And so even subtracting off of your plate and adding it onto somebody else's because you bring on a new team member, okay, great. But like you said earlier with the Eisenhower matrix, like, does it even need to continue? And we don't often think about like even subtraction from one plate and addition onto another as the art of subtraction as well, because you want to be removing yourself as you want to build a business that can operate without you. If you're building a business that cannot operate without you, you are absolutely have created a job for yourself, a job that probably doesn't pay you enough, a job that you'll be miserable at, and that you can't get all of the tasks done. I mean, all of these negative check marks. I'm not saying that it isn't fun. It can't be great at times. Yes, that's what entrepreneur can be. It gives you different types of freedom, etc., but not always. But if you're not building a business that you can walk away from, then you're not able to subtract things, right? You're not looking at a business plan, a vision that allows you the growth that you could have if you were looking at it through that lens. And so one of the things I want to ask you now, and maybe pause this podcast, is ask yourself, what am I doing that my future company or my future self can't afford for me to do anymore? So ask yourself that, write that out. What are you doing now that my future company and my future self cannot afford for me to do? Because you, as the owner, or as a sales rep, as a business driver, etc., like Amanda said earlier, you need to be moving the needle. Yes, your team can too, but you are the primary resource of moving that needle. And if you're not moving that needle, your employees, your people around you will only do it for so long without you doing it. So that means you're capping your growth. You're making yourself stagnant, or even working yourself out of a business, period.
Absolutely. And I think about the 80-20 principle. 20% of your efforts are driving 80% of your revenue, but most entrepreneurs are stuck managing that 80% that's doing absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. They're stuck managing all that admin stuff, all the cleaning and the BS work that is doing nothing to drive revenue. And you said it's not a needle mover. And I know that a lot of times this comes from fear. Subtraction feels risky. Going down to less offers feels really, really risky. I mean, there is that fear of missing out on an opportunity, like, oh my gosh, I have this great idea and I'm suddenly going to not pursue that. Your fear of disappointing people. You're taking away an offer that like 3 people like, and it's going to disappoint those 3 people. And so I can't possibly take that away. Or that your fear of losing momentum. You have all this movement. Again, you've got this motion inside your hamster wheel. And if you take something away, you're going to suddenly feel like you're losing momentum because the hamster wheel slows down, because maybe it's, no longer in a wheel and it's actually on the real road. You're trying to actually go somewhere. So you have to kind of choose that focus over comfort. We've said it a million times that growth doesn't come from the comfort zone. And a lot of times when you've added these things on, you have these popular but not really profitable programs, or You've got services that drain the team, or it feels like it's hard to narrow down or niche down to a smaller client base, or you know removing commitments that you've made, that you've told yourself are important, and that they look good on paper, they're not moving the needle. It makes you feel good to say that you're so busy, but suddenly you're not doing that. All that feels like you're losing momentum, and it feels scary, it feels risky, it feels like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. But ultimately, only 20% of your efforts are driving 80% of that revenue. And what could you be doing with that time? How much more could you be generating if you gave up the 80% of the BS work that you're doing?
Yeah, it's not just time, it's also capacity and mental energy and stamina. And I know Amanda said this earlier as well, and I know I mentioned it, but I have to add that in there. I know we've went over a couple of things that we need to drop, like the offers and the tasks and the different things, and I want to come back to that. But there was something that you said earlier, and it came back up here as well. And you kind of mentioned, like, not quite sure how we got to this point where, like, adding more things on, and it could be the crap that's in our food. It could be this, it could be that, it could be a cajillion things. I mean, we are in a world of instant gratification because everything's at our fingertips. So trying to stay relevant as well. The whole social media culture and the accessibility. But I think of, like, the old generation businesses, like the old time, like 50, 60 years ago. And I know that's not super old, but that was still, like, I know people in that generation who created these businesses, and they were super old school. They did X, they maybe did Y, and they built these generational businesses worth millions and sometimes billions because they just did it over and over and over and was really exceptional at what they did. And I'm not saying that yeah, staying in their lane. And I'm not saying that that's right for everybody. However, I will say that we could absolutely learn more from that. And it is so essential for us to just, like, say, okay, all of this is great. And what do I need to be focusing in on? I don't need to be keeping up with the Joneses and doing all of the things and doing everything. And then, because what happens is you do not put the effort to get the return on investment. You do not put the effort in, even though you think your mind has tricked you that you've done all of the things, you did all the dance moves to make this work, and it should work because you followed what that guru said from point A to point B to point C. Bullshit. No, it's not. And everything doesn't work that way. And so really, when we can hyper focus and narrow it down and get really, really good at that, then we add something different. So let me go back to the things that we removed. So you talked about too many offers. We talked about tasks. We talked about a few other things. But also, and you started to say it here, but I can't remember if we actually have a podcast on this one. But one of my favorite things is low profit or high drama clients. Not all revenue is good revenue. And sometimes subtracting that asshole client off of your book of business will absolutely give you the capacity and the brain width and the patience to be able to take on clients that actually repay you, give you the ROI. I remember in my security business, one of the other security guys that was also had a security business, Tim, I talk about him a lot in the books and different things like that. He was a competitor, but he was one of my best referral sources. I remember him talking to me about, like, not asshole clients, we'll say the asshole clients. And he's like, man, what I've noticed is that almost 80% of any client that has a last name that starts with a P is not an easy client. And sure enough, I go back to my little filing system and I'm like, oh, listen, if you were my client and you were P, you weren't the one, because you're probably listening to me and that means we got along. But I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. There was some truth to that. But with that being said, like, I remember going through my client database and really analyzing when we were going to different levels. And I can remember one of the first times I did this when we were ready for that next growth, and going through my client list and saying, okay, now there were a couple I actually up and got rid of contractually. Like, I didn't have to renew their contract. But then there were some that I renegotiated to make it a bit more worth it, or reboundaried. it's probably not a term, but I made it a term, to be able to like protect myself, but also my employees. And we do that now. Like there's lots of times that we're not going to bring on somebody because they're either a low profit or they're going to be high drama, because even high drama, even if they're paying us 10 times what our normal client pays us, sometimes it's not worth it. Now, to some of you, it might be. We get it, but it absolutely is taking time, energy, and capacity away from you being able to have the right ones.
100%. And when I think about subtraction, because apparently math is hard for me today, I also think about addition, because when you get rid of all these things, again, it's either energetically, maybe it's a time thing, maybe it's an offer thing, maybe it's content, whatever, you're actually adding the space for other things too. So you're taking away these things and you're adding space for strategic thinking. You're adding space for better client experiences or better clients in general. You're taking away the marketing that isn't working and you're making space for stronger marketing. You're getting rid of that employee that sucks the team's energy and that does not mesh with the team, and you're creating space for an opportunity for someone better to come in. You're creating space for higher revenue per offer. You're creating space for more sustainable growth. So just because you're subtracting doesn't mean you're taking away from your business. Often that subtraction is leaving space for the better additions, the additions that you want to have in your business, the additions like extra dollars, the additions like more profit. Those are the things that we're wanting to add, not just more work, not just more like tasks to check off on your to-do list.
Because although we do love that, but no.
Listen, I love a good to-do list. I love checking things off my task. I'll put things on my checklist just so I can check them off, even if I've already done them. That's not moving the needle. And we want needle moving things. And we're not saying you're going to be able to, after this podcast, wipe your hands clean of all busy work and you will just completely shut that off and you will become the most organized and profitable CEO of your business ever. It doesn't happen overnight. And there will still be admin stuff that sometimes you have to step in for. I mean, even with Lynn and I having a team, sometimes we have to step in and do other stuff. And that's okay too. We're not saying that it never happens. It just shouldn't be the only thing. You shouldn't be the only one. It shouldn't just be a team of you.
Yeah,
doing
no.
all the work.
On an island of one. No, absolutely. Okay, so a couple other things that subtraction that maybe you're not thinking about. We already talked about tools and platforms as well, but meetings. And I have client after client after client serve, but also myself. But listen, meetings that don't move anything in the era of which your business is in. So sometimes you need to build relationships. Sometimes they're about decision making. Sometimes they're about alignment. Sometimes they're about progress. But are you taking on a bunch of meetings and filling up your calendar with a bunch of, pauhanas, as we would say in Hawaii, to just like shoot the shit and not actually move forward? Also, over-explaining your work. Complexity. You need to subtract this. No, you should be clear about what you do and be able to have a clear, simple message. So that way people can understand what you do and why it matters, the problem that it solves. But when you babble and babble and babble and babble, and then you're also explaining why you are the way that you are and this and that in the wrong, you're losing them. People, they check out, watch their eyes, it glasses over. Also subtracting work that doesn't require your level of skill, right? We talked about that. So giving it to somebody else. And then one of my favorite, and I know it's one of your favorite to subtract, is reactive decision-making. Amanda just called me out on this not too long ago, and I'm typically not reactive, but in that moment, it was very much when we were making some decisions on our podcast. I was like, well, what about this? And what about this? And she said, we don't want to make a reactive decision. So let me come back to that. And you know what? Good. Call me out on it. Reactive decisions, especially when you're in it constantly, which what we find is most entrepreneurs are, it creates, everything feels urgent. Everything feels like it has to revolve around that point in time and nothing else matters. And so if you're always in reactive mode, your decision filter can't help you. it can't help you.
Yeah, and I want to say one more note about that particular instance that Lynn's talking about, because I know we've talked about this and this is slightly off topic, but how important it is to have people on your team who aren't yes people, who can call you out. And then Lynn didn't come back with this like reactive, you don't like my idea, you suck. I mean, she just was like, okay, you take that information and you move on. And she and I have very clear communication, so it works. But you also have to set that up with your teams to help them call you out on things and then take the notes when they give it to you. And Lynn's called me out on lots of things all the time. I need to be called out. I'm my own boss, so I need someone to call me out. Otherwise, it's just me and my own staff meeting in my head having crazy ideas, and I need someone to call me out. So it's important to have that, if you're going to add something else to your plate, add a strategic team, someone who's not a yes person, a consultant that can work with you, etc. I mean, we're obviously here for that. However, that reactive treatment of your business is killing you. It's killing you, and feeling like you can't delegate because no one's going to do it as well as you. Listen, I am from the age of if you want it done right, you do it yourself, and I still struggle with that. But as it is now, I just need someone who's like 70 to 80% as good as me. And as long as it gets done, I mean, I feel like the more you get into your business, the more, all the other entrepreneurs out there, you can talk to me about this, but the further along you get in your business, the less you really want to be in it and the less control you have over things in a good way. And you need to start trusting your teams and taking away that micromanaging, subtracting the micromanaging that prevents your teams from even relying on themselves. I was just talking to somebody who was in the conference that we had here, the Women's Leadership and Empowerment Conference, and they got stuck here based on all the travel stuff that's been going on, and their team had a huge event going on, and she wanted to get into this micromanaging, do this, but she pulled back, and her team did great. Once they realized that they couldn't fall back on her to pick up all their slack, they did great. They picked up the slack themselves. They did it. She could do nothing from 7,000 miles away. And that was a great lesson for her as an entrepreneur and as a leader for her team, to realize that you got to pull back on some of these things, pull back that need to micromanage, pull back that need to control the entire situation, and trust your team so that they can actually do the thing, do the work.
Yes. Listen, we know that we talked your ear off. There are so many other things that we can talk about subtracting. Yeah. But that would be probably a week's worth of a course. I just thought of another one, and I am going to leave on this one before I close up, because, especially during COVID, all these people bought all these courses and all these different things, but yet there was no follow through. If you don't have capacity because you're not taking things off of your plate, you're constantly putting things on your plate, you're eventually going to run out of space and you just won't be able to do it. So anyway, I think we've talked a lot about subtraction. And if this podcast resonated with you, make sure that you are leaving us a comment. Let us know what you took away and what you're subtracting out of your personal life. We didn't even get into the personal side, but the personal life, the business, because it's like spring cleaning. Got it. Do love a good spring clean, and how things feel fresh and there's no stagnant energy anymore. It's because you're removing all of the crap that no longer serves you. And so think of that. Think of this podcast almost as a subtraction, almost as like a spring cleaning-esque of everything going on, and allow that to flow, allow things to grow again, allow things to breathe. And make sure that you're sharing this podcast with somebody in your network or multiple people in your network that could use this as a tool, as a nugget for themselves. Maybe they're holding on to too many things as well. We're here. We love what we do. We love sharing this knowledge. Please let us know what you took away and what else you want to hear from us, because we love to hear from you.
And I want to leave the audience with one final question that you can ask yourselves. Pause the podcast, or I guess it's almost over, so stop the podcast and answer this question. What is one thing in your business right now that you know you should subtract? Just one thing. Start with one thing. Even if there are a million, you got to start somewhere. Start with one. So let us know, what's that one thing in your business right now that you should subtract. Let us know in the comments. Let us know hop over to YouTube, subscribe to our channel, and let us know what you should subtract from your business right now.
Absolutely. Until next time.
Get after it.
Thanks for tuning in. But remember, listening is not doing.
Take what you heard today and move.
Share the episode, leave us a review, and tag us when you take action.
Head over to the pursuitofbadasserie.com and see how we're helping entrepreneurs get results without the fluff.
Until next time,
let's get after it.